welcome back to my tutorial on beginner scripting in Roblox. And today we're going to revisit what we kind of touched on in the first episode, and that's variables and properties of parts in the game. Just as kind of a way to reacquaint you guys and help you guys practice more with this really basic but crucial topic. So what we're going to do is open our script, which is in server script service like before, and we're going to find our part in the workspace, and we'll make a variable for it. So you say local name of what we want to call it. We'll just call it part equals game dot workspace wait for child part, so that we know that the part is going to be in the game before we try to assign it to our variable. Now, before we start using that, I just want to assign, let's say, local x equals 30, local y equals 70. I want to show you a few things you can do with variables that you may not know already. So if you want to show the sum of these two variables, you can do print x plus y. And you can do this with pretty much any arithmetic operator. You can do slash for division, star for multiplication, and obviously a subtraction sign for subtraction. We're just going to do this. So if you go to view, or test, sorry, and do run, in your output you'll see 100. Because we did 30 plus 70. So when you do math with variables, it's going to use the value assigned to the variable. It's not going to show x, y, or anything like that. And like I said, you can do the same thing with subtraction or multiplication. We'll do multiplication. It will do 30 times 70. It shows you 2100. So this is important in scripting, to assign values to variables and use them later on in your scripts. Like, say you want to multiply a player's number of kills by experience to give them experience, or gold, or any kind of value that a player collects in your game. Variables are super important for that, and you can change variables. So what we'll do is we'll say print x, and then we'll say x equals 5 x. So you can repurpose variables as you need them throughout your script. So see, it says 30 because that's what it starts out as, and then it says 5 because that's what we changed it to. So as players do things, or as circumstances change in your game, you can edit pre-existing variables. Now, if you try to create two of the same variable, so let's see what happens. So we have two of the same variable. It's going to print 5 because it's overwriting your initial variable. So make sure if you want two different numbers, you name them two different things. You can do this because it's case sensitive. You can have two different x's, but that can get confusing. You want to name your variables meaningful things that will allow you to remember what they're for when you're midway through your script and you're trying to use them. Now, variables don't just have to be numbers. They can also be strings, which to write a string you have to do quotation mark and say test. So now if you say print x, what shows up? Test. It will show you the string value. Now let's say, and this happens very often, that you have a player's name, so we'll say player, and you have a value that you want to show, like their number of kills, and we'll say their number of kills is 6, and that can be a value you grab from the player itself if that's how you choose to store your player statistics, which we'll get into later tutorials. But for now, let's say you have a number and you have a string. How do you show both of them on the same line without having to do something like this and making it cluttered and sloppy? So what you do is you say x, and then what you want it to say, let's say dot dot has dot dot y dot dot kills. So what did I just do here? And make sure there's spacing. These two dots, only two, not three, not one, do something called concatenation. So they'll take the value of this variable and they'll stick it as if it were a string onto the side of this actual string has, concatenate again to this number value, and so on. So I know that's a lot to kind of wrap your head around right now, but just know that two dots are going to fuse this string with these variable values. So let's see what this says. Player has 6 kills. So this can be anything you want. You know, you could say Sedge has 1,000 kills, and it will display the number, which is important in GUIs and things like that. So now we're going to get into properties of parts. We edited the name of a part in our previous video, and we saw that that took a string value. But as we know, there are multiple data types. It's not just strings. So let's say we want to edit transparency. We would say part.transparency equals, and it's a number value, so we'll say 0.7, right? And I guess we can change the name, part.name equals party. So see how two different properties require two different kinds of data. The name requires a string because it's a name, and the string is any kind of character or sentence that you would speak in English, or I guess whatever language you speak. It's just a word, and a int value, or I should say a number value like this, 0.7, goes for transparency because transparency doesn't accept strings. It only accepts a number between 0 and 1. So if we say run, we'll see that the name has changed to party and the transparency has changed to 0.7. Okay, so sometimes you need to edit something that doesn't have one value. So if you look at size, you'll see it has 3 different values separated by commas, and that can seem a little bit confusing, but if you hit this drop down arrow, you'll see it has an X component, it has a Y component, and it has a Z component, hence the 3 values separated by commas. Now if we look at the part and we edit the X, it gets longer on the X-axis. If we edit the Y, it gets taller on the Y-axis, and if we edit the Z, it gets wider on the Z-axis. So we'll undo all that, and I'll show you how to edit all 3 values at once. What you're going to do is part.size equals. Now pay careful attention to what this is called. This is called vector3 dot new, because you're creating a new vector with 3 variables, 3 parameters, and if we were to keep it the same size, it would be 4 for X, 1 for Y, and 2 for Z. And you can see as you're typing it, it tells you what each number corresponds to, X, Y, Z. But we don't want it to be the same size. We want it to be, let's say, twice the size. So 8, 2, and 4. So now if we click run, we'll see that it's increased in size. Now the same is true for things like position, velocity, rotation velocity, things like that. They're going to require vector3 with 3 different parameters. Now not all these are the same. Some of them are going to require different constructors. However, for size and position, it's going to be vector3 because, like we said, it has 3 variables, and a vector deals with size and position in the base plate, in the workspace, I should say. So let's test it. Let's say we want to make a big part that's red, and twice the size of, we'll say 3 times the size of the original. Make it more interesting with a transparency of 0.5. I want you to go ahead, try that out, pause the video, open your own studio, rename your part, do everything that I just said, name your part to something you want, change the size, change the color, change the transparency, and then come back and we'll do it together. Okay, so again, part.name equals party. Part.transparency equals 0.5, 0.3. Part.brick color, and this is a new one, so pay attention, equals brick color dot new, and it will give you all the colors that you want that are available in the game, or available in Studio, I should say. And let's make it really red. Close parentheses. And then we will say part.size equals vector3.new. We will make it 12 by 3 by 6. Now, all this, go ahead and type this or whatever you want your color to be, your size to be, etc. Make sure you've capitalized each property and you're using the correct data type. String, number, a brick color, new, which is a constructor. This is called a constructor for the object brick color. And you name it really red. It takes a string in this case. And part.size is a vector because there are 3 values associated with size. If you wanted to do color in a different way, you could do part.color equals color 3. And that's kind of confusing to do because Roblox doesn't automatically assign it RGB values. So I would say from RGB, and I would say hex values for RGB that I want. And I don't really have those on hand. Color 3 from RGB, not color. But we're not going to do that right now. This is if you know what RGB is and the hex values associated with it. If you don't know, you can just kind of Google it and say RGB values for red, blue, green, whatever color you want. But for this tutorial, we're just going to stick with brick colors because those are very simple and they're preset for us and you don't have to worry about the numbers. So we'll hit run and we'll see what happens. You see our brick got bigger, it turned red, it became transparent, and it's named party. So the only way to get better at these things is to practice them yourself. So take what you've learned here and apply it, play with it, play with different parts, mess with the different properties, look on the wiki for the different data types that each property takes, the ones we didn't cover in this tutorial. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you want to see next, tell me what you guys really need help on, and I'll try to get a video out to address that. So thanks again, and bye-bye.